Could Diddy get bail? May sound like a long shot, but is there something that could maybe change the judge's mind? Well, we're going to be speaking with the bail bondsman to the stars, Ira Judelson, about whether Diddy may get out in a rumored new bail package. He has been working with Diddy's team. Plus, what can we expect about whether the rap mogul will spend the next decade or two behind bars?
This was a man watching everything he had built unravel in front of the world as cameras captured every moment and legal pressure mounted from every direction. The tension had been growing for days. One witness after another took the stand. Quiet rumors became impossible to ignore. Boxes of evidence covered the courtroom. Sealed depositions, encrypted recordings, stacks of text messages, contracts, and surveillance records. The case had moved far beyond speculation. Prosecutors presented what they described as a detailed record of alleged misconduct. They pointed to NDAs they argued were designed to keep people silent, security logs documenting repeated late-night visits, internal emails instructing staff to remain discreet, and flight records they claimed connected private travel to exclusive gatherings. When the verdict was finally announced, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Rather than offering a public statement or showing visible remorse, he reacted with anger. According to those present, he slammed his fists down, bringing a dramatic close to an already intense courtroom moment.
Racketeering conspiracy and 2 counts of sex trafficking. Now we ask, what is his sentence going to be on those 2 charges, the Mann Act charges? And there's also another question that we're going to address today. Could he get bail? Could he get out? You might be saying, Jesse, wait a second. He was denied bail at every turn. And you would be right, he was. Despite proposing extensive bail conditions during the course of this legal saga, including a $50 million bail package and monitoring by private security personnel, the court was not convinced. Now, by law, the defense has the burden to prove that Combs is not a flight risk or danger to the community. And given the charges, the allegations, including that he was improperly trying to contact people in the case pre-trial, he was always denied release. But then there's what happened after the verdict last week. And this is an interesting conversation. And again, we're going to be speaking with Ira Judelson in a minute, who's been working with Diddy's team on possibly getting him released. But after the verdict, the defense applied for Combs to be released from detention pending sentencing. But that request was again denied by Judge Arun Subramanian. The defense argued, look, he's no longer charged with RICO. There's no longer presumption of detention. We have his passport. There's no access to private planes. There's no criminal history. This is his first conviction. He would be a fool to mess any of this up because he was just given his life back by the jury. He wasn't convicted of the highest charges. He was facing up to life in prison. Now he's not. He should be allowed to return to his property, his mansion in Florida. There'll be a $1 million bond. Now, the government argued, look, Sean Combs, he was convicted of serious charges, Mann Act violations. There was physical abuse in this case. There was prolific use and distribution of drugs. He committed crimes while under investigation, including having drugs in his hotel room when he planned to surrender to federal authorities back in September of 2024. And Judge Arun Subramanian denied the bail application, sided with the government that these convictions on these charges by law, they trigger the mandatory detention statute, that the defense conceded Combs is violent. They conceded that at trial. Quote, we own the domestic violence. That's what the defense had said. The judge also made the point that it was impossible for the defense to demonstrate that he poses no danger, particularly given his violence after the searches of his properties and when he knew he was under investigation. That's the whole Violent Jane episode, attacking Jane, one of the victims in this case. And also that the evidence at trial showed there was a years-long pattern of abuse and violence. But despite the judge denying Combs' release once again, and given that his sentencing has officially been confirmed for October 3rd, that was agreed by both the defense and the prosecution yesterday, could he get out beforehand? It's an interesting question. Let me bring in right now a special guest. I am joined by one of the most renowned bail bondsmen, probably in the country, definitely in New York.
His frustration was impossible to hide. He shouted across the courtroom as members of his legal team tried to calm the situation, but the moment had already slipped beyond anyone's control. Reports of exactly what happened next varied. Some accounts claimed he attempted to move toward the judge's bench before court officers intervened, while others said he took only a few steps before being escorted away. Whatever the precise sequence, the scene quickly became one of the most talked about moments of the proceedings. The reaction online was immediate. Social media erupted as clips and commentary spread within minutes. Longtime supporters found themselves divided. Some urged people to reserve judgment and respect the legal process, while others publicly distanced themselves, criticizing his conduct and expressing support for those who had come forward. Across the entertainment industry, the fallout was swift. News outlets updated headlines throughout the day, replacing polished publicity photos with courtroom images as coverage intensified. Brands and business partners reportedly paused ongoing relationships while evaluating the situation. Television projects, promotional appearances, and future collaborations faced growing uncertainty as executives assessed the potential impact on their organizations. Behind the scenes, industry conversations turned increasingly cautious. Event organizers weighed reputational risks, production schedules were reconsidered, and several collaborators quietly stepped back from planned projects. Whether temporary or permanent, the shift reflected how quickly public perception and professional opportunities can change when a high-profile legal case dominates the headlines.
$50 million, right?
Yes.
The idea of private security. It was an interesting argument because who would monitor him. It was interesting because the prosecution at one point had said it's not fair, right? He's a wealthy celebrity who's providing a bail package that other people in his similar position wouldn't be able to provide. Now, the defense was like, well, the only reason we're presenting a package like this is because of what he's accused of and his wealth and his resources. We have to address that in a certain way. The reason it's so extensive is because of his wealth and resources. That bail package that was put forward was rejected by the court. What did you make of that?
Well, at that time, the judge was looking at the RICO Act and sex trafficking. So, Puffy was looking at possibly 25 years, or more, depending on what the guidelines were based on if he was convicted. So at 55 years old, at that time, it's almost a life sentence. So, and he has a lot of wealth and he had a private plane. So the judge was looking at that. Plus, in the federal system, they look at danger to the community. Where in the state system, they're not allowed to look at that. They look at risk of flight. So I think with all the letters behind that were coming in that we were not really privy to from a lot of the alleged victims, I think the judge made a decision that, hey, this is not going to be sufficient enough. I thought that at the end, he kind of, when we brought it on our private security team and we showed him who was going to be doing, and we did Sam Bankman-Fried. So we knew that, we would be completely covered on that end. And we gave him the idea of there would be no Wi-Fi in the building that we were looking at, and that he would not be able to really be able to connect with anybody but his legal team and his family. We thought at that point that maybe we had a chance, but at the end, the judge denied it, and that's where we stood. And now on this case coming forward, after the convictions, after he wasn't convicted, at the end, we didn't know what he was going to do. So, when Mark reached out to me afterwards, we started thinking about putting another bail package together.
And what is that bail package and by the way, is this a bail package that you think could be submitted again, even after the judge just denied bail?
Well, the judge denied bail based on the statute, and the statute stated a certain amount of information that part of the Mann Act that, was not eligible for bail. There are certain circumstances that can be done. We're going to regroup again. I know that they were going to go talk to Mr. Combs again and see what happens there. They have the October 3rd date. And, I don't know where he stood. As of the other day, he wanted to get out. I don't think anybody wants to be at MDC where he is. So, we're going to reconvene and see what happens, at a later date. We could go back with another package.
Would it require him to stay in New York? Would it be him to be, I know he wanted to go back to his property.
For many high-profile cases, sentencing is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new phase. Appeals may follow, along with additional legal proceedings if prosecutors pursue other matters or if new evidence emerges. Whether that happens depends on the facts, the courts, and ongoing investigations. Legal experts often note that major criminal cases can have consequences far beyond the courtroom. Public opinion shifts, business relationships are reassessed, and organizations review how they respond to allegations involving prominent figures. Questions about accountability, corporate responsibility, and industry culture frequently become part of the broader conversation. In the entertainment world, Companies, sponsors, and collaborators may reevaluate partnerships based on legal developments and reputational risk. Some projects can be delayed or canceled, while others move forward only after careful review. At the same time, attorneys on both sides continue preparing legal motions, challenging rulings where appropriate, and pursuing every available avenue within the judicial process. As the case progresses, attention is likely to remain focused on future hearings, appeals, and any additional evidence that may be introduced through official court proceedings. Media coverage will continue to evolve as verified information becomes available, while commentators debate what the case means for the music industry and for public expectations of influential figures. The broader discussion extends beyond one individual. Many observers are asking whether companies should strengthen ethics policies, whether contracts should include clearer conduct provisions, and how institutions should respond when serious allegations arise. These questions are increasingly shaping conversations across entertainment, sports, and business. For the people and organizations connected to the case, the coming months may involve difficult decisions about partnerships, branding, and long-term strategy. Some will choose to distance themselves, while others may wait for the legal process to run its course before making public decisions. Ultimately, what follows a sentencing often matters almost as much as the verdict itself. Appeals, legal reviews, and public debate can continue for years. The lasting impact will depend not only on the outcome of the case but also on how institutions, businesses, and the public respond to the lessons it leaves behind.
Favorable ruling. Obviously, he was convicted. He's not entirely happy with it, and his defense counsel explained that. But they also, in their press conference after the verdict, they were jubilant. They were ecstatic. And I wonder if he gets a favorable sentence, is he even going to challenge this? I mean, they seem happy.
Yeah, they seem ecstatic because the emotions that kind of ran outside of the courtroom, it was kind of double that inside the courtroom where all the defense attorneys were hugging, they were crying. So seeing them outside in the press conference, all kind of holding hands, going up, that was just a little slice of the cake from what we all saw inside that federal courtroom. But I think it can kind of go both ways, and that's mainly because Sean Combs is still behind bars right now. The judge didn't grant him bail even after the verdict. And I think his reasoning might give us a little kind of picture into what the sentencing might possibly look like, because the judge even pointed out during his denying of Diddy's bail after his conviction, which were on counts 3 and 5, kind of talking back to what had happened in June of 2024 with Jane and the violent altercation that happened over at Jane's apartment. And so I'm thinking if the judge is already kind of on his mind about the whole domestic violence aspect and the physical violence that was exuded from the defendant, even just last year, I think it's possible maybe the judge, even if he hears from the family, even if he hears from Sean Combs' friends, that it's possible it might be kind of a little bit of a tougher sentence than maybe the defense was expecting.
Well, look, I think the defense might be wanting to take advantage of this, right? Now, the judge said, even though I'm denying bail and I'm looking at the violence factor, it's not a preview of what I'm going to do for sentencing. But I think this is the opportunity for the defense to submit any kind of mitigating factors and have the probation officer speak to his friends and family and talk about the impact of this. I mean, we just interviewed Charlucci the other day. So I wonder if they're saying, you know what? They said to Sean Combs, listen, let's wait for October. Gives us more time to present our case to Judge Arun Subramanian. And then we had the hearing today. This monumental hearing.
Was great.
You've been in court for 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
This was what, like 7 seconds?
I think maybe even less than, I would say
What
kind
happened?
of close to 5 minutes. So get all the way down to the courthouse. I'm like seeing everybody
Which
from
is not
the trial.
close from here, so people know.
It's not. It's not. And it was hot outside too. So
It's all the way downtown.
Walking all the way down, or not, I didn't walk all the way downtown, from the subway to the walk to the courthouse.
Okay.
Get there, check in on my stuff. I would say the security check-in was longer than the actual hearing.
Okay.
So it was a remote hearing. We didn't see Sean Combs in person. We didn't see any of the attorneys on both sides. We didn't even see the judge. And so what had happened was we get inside kind of the overflow room.
Oh, the overflow room. Okay.
Yep. So we get inside the overflow room. There's a big giant screen. It's completely black, but then you hear Sean Combs' voice being like, Mark, are you there? And so it was kind of like one of those dial-in type of hearings. And so we heard Mark Agnifilo's voice. Then all of a sudden we hear the prosecution's voice. It was Christy Slavic. She was accompanied by Emily Johnson, both who work on behalf of the government. And then all of a sudden, Mark Agnifilo was kind of like, you know what, we were able to work everything out as far as our sentencing date goes. And then the judge's clerk is like, oh, okay, so both parties agree. And then this matter is adjourned.
Then came the aftermath. More than the sentence itself, people focused on what it represented. A moment that many saw as a turning point in a case that had dominated headlines for months. Supporters, critics, legal analysts, and industry insiders all began asking the same question. What happens next? In the weeks that followed, additional individuals came forward with accounts they said had previously gone unheard. Some described difficult experiences they believed reflected larger problems within the entertainment industry. Others chose to remain anonymous while sharing their stories through attorneys or journalists. As with any new allegations, those claims would require independent verification and should not be treated as established fact without supporting evidence. Investigative reporters continued examining past events, revisiting timelines and public incidents that had long fueled speculation. Articles explored whether seemingly unrelated moments in the music business revealed broader patterns, while commentators debated whether warning signs had been overlooked for years. The business impact was equally significant. Companies reviewed partnerships, licensing agreements, and branding strategies to determine whether continuing existing relationships aligned with their policies. Executives across the industry reportedly reassessed risk management practices, while artists and employees sought stronger contractual protections and clearer workplace safeguards. The legal process, however, did not stop with a verdict. Appeals, post-trial motions, and related civil proceedings are common features of major criminal cases. Attorneys on both sides continued preparing for the next stage while additional claims, if filed, would be evaluated through the courts according to the available evidence. More broadly, the case reignited conversations about accountability in the entertainment industry. Observers questioned whether institutions had responded quickly enough to early complaints and whether stronger reporting mechanisms, oversight, and transparency could help prevent similar situations in the future. For many, the significance of the case extends beyond one individual. It has prompted discussions about power, influence, and the responsibility of organizations to address serious allegations fairly and consistently. Whether those conversations lead to lasting reforms remains to be seen, but the debate is unlikely to end anytime soon. The story is still unfolding. Future court proceedings, appeals, and related legal actions will continue to shape its legacy. Whatever the final outcome, the case has already become part of a much larger discussion about accountability, institutional responsibility, and how industries respond when influential figures face serious criminal allegations.
In this case, I think as far as just kind of the allegations towards men were really just having to do with the escorts or the entertainers, as they were also called in the criminal trial. But for the most part, it seemed like from what we heard in the criminal trial, which I know a lot of people are a little disappointed because they thought it would be a lot more, but really it was just kind of like just different isolated incidents involving two victims, being Jane and Cassie. But it seemed like there wasn't a lot of discussion about male victims in this trial, but there were little points that were brought up in terms of like the civil matters, those including like Bonna and her civil claim, Dawn Richard and her civil claim. I think even during the cross-examination of Cassie, one of the defense attorneys, that would be Anna Esteval, she had asked, was the baby oil laced? And I was thinking back to the civil claims, because a lot of civil claims had, a lot of civil suits had claimed that
it wasn't laced.
That it was, the civil suits claimed it was laced, but then in the criminal trial, Cassie had confirmed that the baby oil was never laced with any type of narcotics or anything like that.
By the way, Combs' legal team said in a statement to Page 6, quote, Mr. Combs' trial and acquittal on trafficking and RICO charges proves what we have been saying all along. Mr. Combs never sexually assaulted or trafficked anyone. That people continue to broadcast and file false accusations, no matter how heinous and uncorroborated, is unfortunate. But Mr. Combs will not back down. He will fight for as long as necessary to win his full vindication. I talked about it on a previous sidebar, how he might tackle all these lawsuits, maybe motions to dismiss, maybe try to say, these Jane and John Doe shouldn't proceed under pseudonyms. If you can convince a court of that, they may be reluctant to continue the case if they have to expose their identities. He might try to get rid of them at initial stages as much as possible.
And he was successful at that at the beginning, too.
Yeah, a few of them, right? Yeah. So I want to ask you about the jurors. Yeah. Okay, so first, a juror has spoken out since the verdict. Not surprising. We had a feeling this would happen. This unnamed juror apparently spoke to ABC and said that the public reaction to this decision, quote, is highly insulting and belittling to the jury and the deliberation process. We spent over 2 days deliberating. Our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law is stated. We would have treated any defendant in the same manner regardless of who they are. I have nothing else to say. Now, you watched the jury, okay? And we'll talk about what an alternate juror had to say too, but you watched the jury. You watched them day in and day out. What do you make of that statement?
I was a little surprised by that statement, just a little bit, only because, and I shouldn't say anything surprising to me when it comes to this trial. I found that statement surprising only because we clearly had heard the same evidence. Obviously, they saw a little bit more than I saw being inside the gallery. Some of the exhibits we weren't able to see, that sort, and that included, the freak off tapes, the hotel night tapes, all of that stuff. And so I was surprised by the jury's decision. It's mainly to count 2. Not as surprised.
Sex trafficking.
Yeah, sex trafficking to Cassie. Yeah, not really surprised with count 1 or even count 4 either.
So racketeering and sex trafficking.
Yeah, I know. I'm just naming the counts, not actually specifying them or anything. But I get also why the juror made that very pointed statement too, because given